Welcome, everyone, to part three. It's at least recorded as part three. I don't know if this will actually go down as part three. We'll see how I order at the end. But part three of our EuroLeague playoff preview podcast here on the Euroball Podcast. I'm joined by Sebastian. Please correct me if I butcher your name here, but Sebastian Komianos from out in Greece.
Komianos, and you're fine.
All right. Perfect. Yeah, we've been friends on Twitter for quite some time, the two of us now, and after a few years, here we are finally doing a podcast episode together. Sebastian, how are you? What are you looking forward to?
I'm good, and I'm so looking forward for this week coming up, EuroLeague playoffs. After a season that I don't know about the rest of people, but to me, it looked like it took 10 seasons. Actually, it looked like it took 10 years to be completed. All these games, all these ups and downs in the standings, all these injuries, all these comebacks.
Yeah.
Mid-season signings.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Crazy. I think the play-in definitely makes the season feel longer, and not just because of that extra week, but because so many more games still have merit later into the season and count for more later into the season. There's so many teams battling for 8 spots in the first place before we had the play-in. Now that we have the play-in, there's so many teams battling for 10. Pretty much 12 to 13 teams are competitive, for almost the entire season until maybe the last round or two. So I think that's because I agree with you. It felt like a way longer season. And I think that's why there's just games just continue to matter longer and longer into the season than they did before. But look, we're here to talk about Barcelona, Olympiacos, the 4-5 series. Look, I said it with Savas earlier today. I think every series besides Real Madrid Baskonia is pretty close and could kind of go either way. I feel a little differently in this series. We'll get into that, but pretty much every series is super close. And to close on that point, I still think this is a close series, but we'll talk about it some more, and I'll explain why I'm leaning one way. But look, let's jump into this preview, and I want to throw it over to you to kick things off. Who are your kind of key players for Olympiacos? And the way I phrase this to a lot of people, what is kind of the first move on the chessboard you're watching for in this series?
I mean, it's Bernucca's as great as a coach that he is. It's not a mystery how he's going to play things. Very fixed rotations, very fixed lineups in terms of substitution times and playing times and everything. So I don't think it's a great mystery. I think anyone that has watched more than 6 or 7 Olympiacos games can tell that the key players are the obvious ones. So I'm not going to mention the very obvious ones, which are Thomas Walkup, for example, and Alec Peters. Alec Peters is maybe a mystery because he hasn't been performing anywhere near well for the past, 1 month or so. So Peters is maybe a mystery, and with Petrusev's actual status and actual, readiness level questionable, Peters is going to be a big factor, I think, in the whole of the series. And then I think it's going to go down to how many games Nigel Williams-Goss is going to play, because this season for him has been 1 game in, 2 games missed, 1 game in, 2 or 3 games missed. So it's a big problem for Olympiacos to handle the ball, to manage the ball, and to take care of the ball properly without him. Everything falls into Walkup's hands. So Peters is one factor. Nigel Williams-Goss is another factor. And then I'm not going to mention Mustafa Fall or Nikola Milutinov, because, again, these are the big names. I'm going to put a big question mark on Zach McKissick, because I think also with the way that Olympiacos roster has been constructed this season, the team lacks players with slashing abilities, with slashing skill sets, with self.
Wait, what about Brasdeikis? What about Brasdeikis?
I mean, I wish, but he has been a non-factor. I mean, there has been games that he was subbed in. He played for 60 seconds, 70 seconds. And most of the times he misses his one wide open 3-point shot, and that's it. That's his whole contribution to the game. So with the way the roster is constructed this season, if McKissick is able to perform for 2 or 3 games, and if one of them is an away one, I think it's going to be a huge factor for Olympiacos.
Yeah.
Then again, of course, we can have the standard for the uninitiated. We can have the standard conversation that goes on like, is Thomas Walkup going to be able to defend, handle the ball, score as well? Is Mustafa Fall going to be able to dominate in the paint? Is Cannon going to make his 3-point shots? But this is the standard conversation. So
yeah.
For me, the 3 players would be Goss, Williams Goss, Peters or Petrusev. I wouldn't be unhappy if Petrusev shows up in the end.
Yeah.
And then Zach McKissick.
Yeah. I mean, I'm with you. Look, Fall and Milutinov are obvious for the reasons we know. I mean, Barcelona is just not a good interior post defense team, right? I mean, if Fall and Milutinov can continue to capitalize on that, as they should, that's kind of an expected win area for Olympiacos. Walk up. I mean, we know Barcelona at some point will probably resort to going under his pick and roll, daring him to shoot, playing deep drop coverage, right? We've seen Fenerbahce did this to Walk up last year. It happened in the Final Four with Real Madrid. We know it's going to happen again. It happens in every playoff series, and Barzokas rides with him. I get it. He trusts the guy, but we know that's probably coming. The slashing is the big deal to me. I agree with you. That is kind of the key element for one place Olympiacos is going to apply rim pressure is with their bigs, Fall, Milutinov, Wright, all these guys. That's one place where they're going to put pressure on Barcelona. But that can't be the only spot. I mean, because they don't want to put the ball in the post every possession. So where they're going to have to get it elsewhere is breaking down from the perimeter and slashing and attacking the rim. Williams Goss has done that well in quite a few games this year, and more so towards the end of the year. That's why, I'm sure you brought him up, and he's going to be a key factor, if he's a reliable offensive creator getting to the rim.
Because it's also the mid-range. The mid-range is another way to, open the court and, create more spaces for everyone else. And Nigel Williams-Goss is the only one that can consistently, quote, attack from the mid-range and generate his own points by himself on his own. So these 2 players are the only ones that can do that for this team. Because again, you don't expect Isaiah Canaan. He's a great scorer. He's a great shooter, but you cannot expect him to, carry the ball for 25, 30 minutes and, constantly attack. He's not a Mike James kind of scorer. He's a different kind of scorer.
Yeah, no, I mean, Kane is a guy. I remember Basket News talking about this, a few years back of like when he was at Kazan and they tried to give him that like ball dominant scorer role. He can't do that. Yeah, I mean, like he could do it in some spurts, in some like small spurts when the shot's already falling. He can do that, but like he really wants his catch and shoot, his off movement threes, and then he can kind of carve out his offensive profile for a game from there. But it needs to start with kind of his spot up and quick release stuff. Yeah, I mean, that's Olympiacos is going to be relying on those drivers. And like I brought up Brezdeikis, I know it was kind of like joking matter. And I think it probably is a joke because I think it's pretty clear at this point, Barzokas doesn't trust him yet. I just don't think he wants to play him that much currently. Like he wants to see more from him. I don't know what's happening in practice. I'm not watching Greek League a lot. So like, I can't attest to like everything that's going on. It's just clear that like Barzokas doesn't see him as a regular in the rotation. But like if Williams Goss gets hurt or if Shaq McKissick is not like really getting to the rim and having the offensive impact he can, like he has to give Brezdeikis a shot. Like we said, they need to consistently apply rim pressure in this series from the perimeter. If they're playing off walk up and those other guys can't get going, like Brezdeikis is the third option. Again, like when I'm saying he has to give Brezdeikis a shot, this would be, we are talking about 4th, 5th, offensive system down the line. Like I said, like Walkup is not having a good series. Williams-Goss maybe gets hurt or isn't rolling the way you want to, or McKissick isn't. Then you have to start thinking about bringing Iggy and putting him on the floor and seeing if he can get something going. But like that's just why he's on my mind. It's the same way with like Jan Madar in this Fenerbahce Monaco series. I'm like, I know this isn't a regular guy, but there might be a spot for him in this series where he's needed.
The thing, however, is that Brasdeikis in the current situation, in the current rotation scheme, is so much further than Jan Madar in Fenerbahce's one. And Barzokas has shown that he trusts you. If he trusts you, he trusts you, and you can turn the ball over, you can miss shots, you can do any kind of bad things for your team. If the trust is there, it's there. And the other side of this is that if he doesn't trust you, he doesn't trust you. And he has shown that he prefers to play Larenzakis more. He prefers to play Naz Mitroulong more. He prefers to play Papanikolaou for 40 minutes. So I think for Brasdeikis to become somebody in this series, it will have to be 2 or 3 problems for Olympiacos down the line, not just 1 or 2, It has to be quite heavy and quite bad for Brasdeikis to... I mean, again, I will not be disappointed if he does it, but I don't see it happening. I can see lineups with 3 guards, for example.
Yeah.
Much more possible than Brasdeikis playing more than 1 or 2 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I like the call out on Peters. I mean, they need Peters to play like a star, right? Like he was a star for most of the season, signed his extension. The star level play has kind of fallen off a little bit here towards the end. So they need that. They need that. They were the best team in EuroLeague last year because they had a star. They had Vezenkov and like, look, Peters isn't Vezenkov, but they need someone to be a star if they're going to win as the 5 seed.
The problem with Peters is that if his shots don't fall, if he doesn't make his shots, it's more or less game over for Peters, because Peters is a much better shooter than Vezenkov, but Vezenkov was so much more complete as a player. Like his offensive rate was so much better than Peters. He could put the ball back in. He could tip it in. Offensive rebounds, cuts, transitions. Peters is just not there. So for Peters, for me, it's just a matter of making his open shots. And if this doesn't happen, there's no other way for him to climb back.
Yep.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, look, so that's what Olympiacos is going to have to kind of lean into on that end. The defensive end, I'm curious for your take on this because you watched them more than I have. I went back and watched them face Barcelona this season. And in their second matchup, they were like Barcelona was punishing Olympiacos switching. Barzokas loves to switch, and look, they have the personnel for it. To be clear, right? He likes to have like Papanikolaou or McKissick guard a lead ball handler. So when the pick and roll happens, like that's who's switching, and they're a little more comfortable defending in the post. But like he will switch with anyone. He'll have Walkup switched in the post. He'll have Kanan switched in the post.
Yeah.
And he expects them to be able to hold their own. But look, for as much as I have, attacked Vesely and Hernan Gomez for their defense this season, they are 2 guys who will punish you if you put smaller players on them in the post. They're very skilled. They have no problem with that. Hernan Gomez did it in their second matchup this year. I mean, he dominated down there when they put guards on him. So, I mean, do you think, like you said at the top, Barzokas is a pretty strict guy. He does what he does. So do you think they might move away from switching? Do you think they're going to try something else? And then if they're not, how do you think they make sure they're not getting picked on all the time in these mismatches?
You live with it, like I don't see it happening. I see it happening only as a last resort option. So, everything else goes the switching goes horribly for, 2 games. Olympiacos is down 2-0, which I don't hope is happening. And then, you actually have to try something different because it's just not working. But if it kind of works, because that's another thing with these decisions, like casual basketball fans, or people that are not professionals, with these kinds of things, you only see them if they don't work. So you only see switching as an actual thing that is happening in the games if it's so obvious because it's not working and the other team is punishing you all the time. If it kind of works, but kind of doesn't, and it works now, but then next play doesn't work, and if it's a back and forth situation, you don't see it. So I think this is a Barzoka's decision, and he has decided to go with switching. Like the number of times Olympiacos fans, we among each other have cursed this defensive decision. It has been countless times, like it has been every second game, and every game we've lost pretty much. But then it's a decision, and it hasn't worked some games, but some other games has worked. So if it's a situation like the last game between these two, the game that Barcelona hosted, yes, it didn't work, and it was kind of obvious that it wasn't working. But it wasn't like Olympiacos lost by 20 points. It wasn't a blowout either. So maybe in Barzoka's mind, it's actually working better than the other option that he has. Maybe he believes that he's cutting the loss and the damage. I don't see it happening. I don't see Olympiacos consciously resorting to a different defensive approach.
Yeah. I mean, look, I agree. The only thing I think there's a chance against Lapro. They try, like, when Walkup is out there, they try some like drop and like chase over the top behind. They might do some of that to kind of like squeeze him out of the 3-point spot.
Yeah.
They've done some of that this year, but I agree. I mean, like, they're just going to switch. I mean, it's what they do. Like, and they're good at it. I mean, Fall, Wright, Milutnov are all like good on the perimeter.
Moses Wright is another option now. There's Moses Wright there as well. And so yeah, it's exactly as you described it. This team has the personnel, it has the knowledge to do it. And it looks horribly in the eyes when it doesn't work, but we don't pay attention to it when it does work. When it does work, we only praise, the player that scored so many points, or the hustling and this and that, and we don't actually see these things when they work.
Yeah.
So for me, it's a conscious decision by Barzokas, and I think he's sticking with it.
The one thing I want to see them add to it, if they stick to the switching and they maybe have some struggles and just a few spots every now and then, is they need to ramp up like the perimeter intensity. Like if you're going to switch and you're going to put that small down low, you need to make Barcelona make a couple extra passes before they can get the ball in the post. That was, to me, like a big problem in the game at Palau, was like Barcelona, like the switch happened and it was just like one pass into like they immediately had the mismatch. Like, if Mustafa Fall is going to switch onto a guard, like, step up, man. Step up, make yourself big, and make them move the ball 2 times before they can get the ball into the post. But, like, if you switch and you just sit there and you're like, oh, yeah, I mean, I guess they're, going at Hernan Gomez versus Kanan. Like, yeah, you're going to give up a bucket. You have to, like, deny multiple passes. If they do that, I think they're going to be fine. I think that's the one little tweak is, like, when this switch happens and we know we have the guard down there, like, we just really need to commit to deny defense for a few seconds, even if it just winds the shot clock down a little bit longer before they get the ball in the post. Like, all those margins matter in a playoff series.
That's true. But then again, what I think happens is that these situations are not just an on-off thing. So it's not like, okay, we're going to play switch and we're going to have the big guy go at the ball handler and deny his options and things like that. It's always 2 or 3 moves down the actual play. So we're going to switch, and then we're going to take care of this and that, and then the other thing and that other thing. So because another thing that happens, for example, quite often is that there is this Olympiacos defense. Sometimes it gives away so easy, so wide open 3-point shots from the corners. And you'd expect a team at this level in Europe to not do that. But it's not that a conscious option is to allow one of the easiest shots in the whole of basketball. But I think it's just a matter of the things before that not clicking well enough to avoid this situation. So yeah, I think defensively it's going to be the same things that we have seen this year, because keep in mind also that this team didn't really have the time to work together as a whole unit for long periods of times. There was always injuries, and there was always injuries of key players, and maybe another reason that I said that this season for me looked like it took 10 years to finish is that some of these Olympiacos players have been playing non-stop since let's say October 2022 or something, because it was the last season and then it was the World Cup, and then there's this season as well, and Thomas Walkup is exhausted, Papanikolaou is exhausted, McKissick was not available until mid-season, Nigel Williams-Goss is super fragile injuries-wise. So I think now that Bartzokas has had his team together for a longer period of time, I do believe that I do think that he believes his defensive execution is going to work so much better.
Yeah.
And I think he trusts his decision. That's another thing with Bartzokas. I don't think he does things because he doesn't have another option. I think he's very confident about what he's doing. He's very confident about his work. And so, yeah, I do think he's sticking to that.
Yeah. You know, he lives and dies with what he does. I mean, he doesn't second guess himself. He makes a decision. If it doesn't work, he moves on. He's a next game type of guy, next play type of guy.
Exactly. Yeah.
So look, we talked about this now a little bit from the Olympiacos perspective. Let's try to look at it from Barcelona, and talk about who some of their key players could be. So, again, like, I like the way you phrase it. Some of the obvious things, they're bigs, what they're going to bring to the table defensively. That's kind of pretty obvious. We talked about that from the Olympiacos side. Can Hernan Gomez and Vesely find a way to impact the game? We'll get into that a little bit more. I think before we talk about what they do defensively, and the second part of that is, as a team, they really, part of protecting the paint and protecting the rim, I think they need to make a concerted effort to be forcing Olympiacos like baseline sideline in their coverages. Really, the old school, like Greg Pop, no middle defense, right? I think that's something they need to look at. And this is a lot easier said than done. I'm saying this from an office chair in Washington, D.C. I'm not out there like even coaching Barcelona or trying to do it in a game, but like, they did some of that in their second matchup with them at Palau. They were making them, stick to the sideline and baseline on drives. And when they cut off the paint, they can prevent some of that rim pressure. That's really helpful. I think that's the key defensively. And then, Vesely and Hernan Gomez stepping up. I know we talked about this a little bit before we got started, but, I'll let you carry this. They could go zone. Do you think that's a real thing? Is that something just on your mind? Like what?
No, it's something that has hurt me in the past as an Olympiacos fan. I mean, it happened it happened in the final last season. Real Madrid did it, and it worked so well for them. Olympiacos kind of collapsed. Like, they wanted to finish the game 5 minutes before he was finished. Like, they had the lead, and they thought, okay, it's over. So. I think it's a very obvious decision from not just from Barcelona's perspective, but from anyone facing this Olympiacos team. I mean, everything in this Olympiacos team is screaming to you to use the zone against them. So I don't see why not. I don't see a single reason why not.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I talked about this actually with Orazio a little bit, because I brought up that Maccabi might want to look at zone against Panathinaikos. Like, if they're having trouble with the pick and roll. I mean, Maccabi tries to switch sometimes, and it does not work as well as it does with Olympiacos. Yeah. They don't quite have the personnel or the intensity and physicality that's always needed for it. But so I brought up, like, hey, when Real was struggling in a playoff series against Efes a few years back, Adamant's Efes, they went to zone and they got back in the series. And like, I think Maccabi should look at it against Panathinaikos. Look, I think as a whole, like, zone defense is kind of getting a renaissance in the NBA. Teams are going to it, particularly in the playoffs. Miami Heat has a great zone. The Sixers played some zone against the Knicks in their opening game, right? Like, we're seeing a lot of teams kind of try it out in spots. I think the only reason we're not seeing it in EuroLeague is, honestly, I'm hypothesizing. I haven't talked to anyone about this, but I think it's some stubbornness. Like, teams just kind of play man and stay in man and whatever their coverages are. But in a playoff series, like, you got to you got to throw out everything in the bag if you need it. And for Roger Gramau, it means one, either start playing James Nagy, which like I think is also an option. I've wrote about this multiple times this season. I don't get why he doesn't play Nagy. Nagy has proven that he can last on a EuroLeague 4 for 10 to 15 minutes a night pretty easily, and have an impact. I don't get why he doesn't play Nagy, but that's here nor there. We don't need to go deep on it. Or go zone. Like that's the other thing they could do, especially in EuroLeague where there's no defensive 3-second. Like it makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, exactly. And people tend to discard and dismiss some of these ideas as if they are out of fashion or, not allowed to be utilized anymore. But even in fashion, even if we talk about fashion, ideas come back from the past, and like somebody has the idea to reuse something from the past and change it a little bit, tweak it a little bit, give it a different name, give it a different color, and here we are again. So I don't see why, I don't see why it's so weird when a team plays zone. I don't see why it's dismissed as unfair even sometimes. I don't know if you've caught this conversation trend from Europe, but there is people that kind of want to how should I phrase it? They do believe that if you utilize the zone, you're not a capable coach. They do believe that you have run out of ideas and you're resorting to defensive schemes from the 80s or from the 90s. As if it's not allowed, as if what? I do not get it. And so, like I don't see one single reason. And again, I'm not a coach, again, as you said, or I'm nowhere near being a coach, but I don't see why not. I don't see why not. Especially when Olympiacos doesn't have, it's not just going to make your defensive life so much easier, but it's going to make the offensive life of the other team so much harder. So much harder. Because I'm going back to what I said at the beginning. If Peter's shots are not falling, who else is there for Olympiacos to make
break his
shots?
own? Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's like Kanan and Peters, right? Like if one of them are making shots,
And then you pray to God that Thomas Walkup goes 5 from 5, 100%, or Papanikolaou has on one of these crazy games that he has sometimes has, and he goes 7 from 7. But these are prayers, these are prayers. So yeah.
Walkup could have like the derby to open the season when he shot 5 of 10 from 3 against Panathinaikos.
Yeah. I mean, you can do like these things can happen from one of your players, but to break the zone against one of these top teams, you need 3 or 4 players to consistently make shots. One is not enough.
Yeah. Like I said, I think if like the forcing baseline, sideline, and kind of team rebounding doesn't work enough, if Olympiacos is still getting too much rim pressure, like I said, there's 2 options. It's James Nagy or zone. Like those are the 2 things you could do. And I don't think he wants to play Nagy, as I've said. So, go zone. And if you don't, like, you're going to lose this series. I think so. That's kind of the defensive look for Barcelona. That's really where a lot of the questions for them lie. Key players offensively. So again, some of the obvious ones, Leprovitola, I mean, he's their star. He's going to come if he's making his shots. They're going to be in any game they want to be in. Vesely and Hernan Gomez, do they keep punishing mismatches? Great, that's big. The same way you brought up Alec Peters, I think Jabari Parker is in a similar spot for Barcelona, right? Like they need him making shots and creating offense, and kind of being their second scorer alongside Leprovitola.
Especially against the lineup of big guys from Olympiacos that are nowhere near his level. They're nowhere near able to challenge him defensively. Petrusev could be, but nobody knows how prepared he is for this series.
Yeah.
So Jabari Parker is essentially playing against no one.
Yep.
Like Alec Peters against Jabari Parker, I don't want to look. I don't want to be watching.
Yeah. Parker had a pretty good game last time you guys played, and Peters.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah. He so there's Parker, Leprovitola, Parker, and then it's like who's the bigs attacking mismatches, and then like who's going to be that extra guy for Barcelona on any given night between Satoransky, Dario Brizuela, Abrines, Kalinic, like which of these guys could step up. And like, I really think, like Dario Brizuela is a guy I'm looking at in this series. Like, can you kind of provide a scoring punch that you're capable of sometimes? Can you have a couple games where you shoot 3 of 6 from 3 and get a couple of those little floaters off in the pick and roll, and you finish the game with 11, 13 points. He's a guy I'm looking at closely. Kalinic is pretty reliable. He gives you what he gives you, right? He makes a few spot up threes and gets a few baskets off cuts. Abrines, man, like, I don't like Abrines. I think Ramal like knows how inconsistent he is. Like, he puts him out there, and if he doesn't knock down a 3 in the first half, he oftentimes will not go back to him. He'll just keep him on the bench for the entire second half.
Yeah.
So I think we're talking about Brizuela and like, Satoransky and Jokubaitis. Like, they need another guard to be scoring for them. Provitola's got most of it. They're going to get it on the wings pretty reliably from Parker and Kalinic. So who's going to be the other ball handler who can put some points on the board for them? And I think that's what they're looking at. Can they create opportunities for those guys?
And one of the great things with this game overall, with this matchup, is that so many decisions are going to be based not on just how your team is playing, but also on how the other team is playing. So, for example, if Olympiacos has to play 3 guards, I can see, and if Olympiacos is switching, I can see, for example, Barcelona trying to exploit the 3rd guard on defense, not just the regular, guard to big guy switching, but also the 3rd guard.
Yeah.
And it's something that Olympiacos themselves have done in the past. So, for example, Nigel Williams-Goss has sometimes posted up against guys that cannot guard him. And I can easily see, I'm not sure if they're going to do it, but I could easily see it happening. I could easily see Roger Grimao deciding that, okay, I'm going to punish the 3rd guard on this Olympiacos rotation. And, Papanikolaou is out because of foul trouble or because he has to rest. And McKissick, even on defense, like this season, he has been on and off again.
Yeah,
like his energy levels are not there. So even if he is the third guy on the perimeter, I can see Barcelona attacking him as well. And then it's not a matter of who is doing it, but against who we're doing it. So it could be Abrines, it could be Kalinic even.
They've done Satoransky post-ups this year too.
Satoransky, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. There's a range of 4 or 5 players that could do it. So
if they get stuck, he'll go Sato in the post against Kanan if he feels it's necessary.
Yeah, exactly. And I could see Kalinic do that as well against Olympiacos power forward or small forward even, because sometimes these teams, they decide to play big or they decide to play small. So, for example, Barcelona can play big against this Olympiacos team. Because right now, defensively, Olympiacos is struggling at the power forward position. So, and if Peters is not producing offensively, he's a defensive liability anyways. So you go at him,
Yeah.
If Petrusev is not ready to play in this series, you go at him. And then what does Bernucca do? Like, does he bring in Luke Sigma?
Yeah.
It's weird. It's messy.
Yeah, I hope it's not Sigma. Look, man, I like Luke Sigma. I don't know how much of a high level EuroLeague contributor he is anymore, to be honest. All due respect to him, really appreciate it.
It's a matter of fit. Again, it's a matter of fit because he was incredible in this Alba Berlin. Alba Berlin sides. Like he was incredible, and you could see, okay, you could think maybe he can make it in a bigger team, in a better team, in a more competitive team, but it just didn't click with this Olympiacos roster. And yeah, like these two, him, similarly to Brasdeikis, it's like they were never there, It's not like they never belonged.
Yep. Yeah. Sigma's getting up there in age too. He doesn't move as well as he used to. But
also he's not a center.
Yeah.
And
he's not a great shooter.
Not power forward either. So
yeah. He doesn't reliably space the floor. For sure. Like I said, look,
yeah.
I don't want to see him playing that much in this series. I think if he's playing a lot, Olympiacos probably has some bigger problems. If he's out on the
That's the
floor a lot.
thing. That's the thing. Olympiacos is lacking depth. The way this roster was constructed, they're lacking depth. So if you have two players that are underperforming, either on the perimeter or in the paint, you have to resort to weird schemes and weird and tricky decisions. So then all this discussion, all this fixed discussion, and all this how is this team going to approach the game? All of this is thrown into the air, and everything changes because now Olympiacos has to play with this guy out of position for 5 minutes. We're going at them, we have to exploit this. We have to make these 5 minutes burning hell for them. So
for sure. So Seb, before we make final predictions, anything you think we didn't get to, anything you think we need to discuss?
I mean, for me, something very important is in this situation is who is going to dictate the pace, who is going to dictate the style of the game, and who is going to decide, what kind of basketball we're playing. Because you have two teams that were quite similar in terms of rankings. Because keep in mind, we're talking about one team that has home court advantage just because they won one game more in the whole of the season. So it's not like, one team was so much better than the other or anything like that. So no matter how they played or no matter what their style was, they were pretty similar. So, for example, but then again, Olympiacos tries to slow the game down. And if they achieve this, maybe this puts Barcelona off, and maybe their decisions become so much worse.
Yep.
And then if Barcelona succeeds to run, Olympiacos has been horrible in their transition defense, for example. So if Barcelona manages to run, could be game over for Olympiacos. So sometimes it's not just a matter of faces or a matter of actual personnel. Sometimes it comes down to the nature of the game.
The game management is going to be important. Yeah.
And saying this, I wanted to conclude with saying, like, the actual idea is that Grimao is a very inexperienced coach.
Yep.
It's his first full season with Barcelona as the head coach, and it's his first playoff series. And these games are so different. Like, similarly to the NBA, it's a whole different game.
Yep.
It's a whole different game. And it's a matchup that keeps evolving. What happens in game one is going to influence game two so much. And then game two is going to influence game three so much. And then, before you know it, you've seen three different styles of plays, So
I mean, Barcelona's's rotations will stay the same, but yeah.
And that's the thing. Can you dictate your slow pace? And can you ask the questions and have the other team have to answer them, or is going to be a back and forth, punch after punch?
Yeah.
And for me, it's very important because we have seen blowouts in game one, and then the team that blew their opponents in game one, they lost the series. It has happened in the EuroLeague so many times. Olympiacos has been a victim of that in the past. So I think this will play a huge role as well, dictating the rules in a way.
Yeah.
If I may put it like that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, and I'm happy you brought up Grimao. So I'd want to give him credit. It's fantastic first season. As
me too. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to be misunderstood.
Yeah. No matter what way the series goes. No matter what way the series goes, Olympiacos could sweep Barcelona, and like I'm impressed with what Grimao's done. I mean, you saw my season preview. Like I had Barcelona outside of the play-in. Like I thought Grimao was going to get fired. Like I just
mid-season,
and he's been fantastic, and there were moments of doubt and insecurity, and they figured it out and kind of turned a corner. He's like, he could get outclassed by Bartzokas in this series. That wouldn't be a shock. But Barcelona should, they made a good hire there. They should give him some time to really, really build a program, and kind of turn that, maybe get them another EuroLeague title, give them something Jasikevic just couldn't. I think he looks capable of it. So look, let's make predictions. The other two I had the guests go first, so I'll go first here. I have Olympiacos in 4. That's coming out of my writing tomorrow.
Okay.
That is my pick.
Okay.
I think they've been great to end the season, to end the regular season. I have a lot of confidence in how they're playing right now. And I just, I believe throughout the season, I've believed in their team a little more than Barcelona, and just Barcelona has never figured out the interior defense, and that is, a major effing problem in a playoff series, man. And that's what makes me go with Olympiacos.
Yeah. To give some context here, again, for any of the people listening that haven't followed the whole season, Barcelona is 2-0 against Olympiacos this season. They've won twice. They won away and they won at home. But as you said, playoffs are different. So, it's going to be big trouble for them with an inexperienced coach also. For me, and I'm saying this as an Olympiacos fan, could be anything. Like you'd have to put a gun on my face, on my head for me to have to make an actual prediction. I could even see this. I could see this going 0-3 for Olympiacos. I could see it going 3-2 for Barcelona. Like I honestly, for real, cannot make a prediction. If I have to, I would go with yours again. I think Olympiacos snatches one game in Catalonia, and then they win 2 at home, and it's 1-3 to their favor. So yeah. Olympiacos in 4 again.
Yep. Yeah, and look, I think it's gonna be 4 close games. I mean, I think what happens is they could probably steal game 1. Barcelona wins game 2. Protects Palau. I mean, Barcelona's been a great home team. Just saying Olympiacos is going to steal a game on the road is tough, but I think they could do it. And then I think it would be really two close games at Peace and Friendship. And I don't know, maybe La Provitola changes the ties in one of those games, and then they go back for game 5 and at Palau, and that's going to be really tough. But right now, Olympiacos, I'm willing to ride with them, and if they're wrong and this Barcelona squad has enough to beat them, then great. Maybe they got enough to go win the whole thing.
Another thing worth mentioning here is that Olympiacos has made 2 Final Fours, 2 consecutive Final Fours, and they did it in 5 games in the playoffs, both seasons, with the home court advantage. But they lost 1 at home, and then they went away and tied the series, and then they went back home and won game 5. And both of the series could have easily gone the other way. One shot not going in, one crazy buzzer beater.
Lucas's buzzer beater doesn't go in. Yeah,
exactly. And or like the season before that Lucas buzzer beater, he had a turnover violation. Like he had a 5 seconds or something like that violation. Forgive me for not remembering exactly what it was. Away in Monaco. So Olympiacos had the chance to finish the series in Monaco, and Lucas turned the ball over, and then they had to go back to Piraeus to conclude the series. So it's not a cliche saying that anything could happen, because anything could happen. Like this season in EuroLeague, it has been so close, and this is another reason that it looked like it took so long, because it's not just the teams that were fighting for the play-in, for the 10th position. It was that, apart from Real Madrid, that was, clearly first and clearly the better team in the regular season, and apart from Alba Berlin and as well Villeurbanne, that were the 2 worst teams of this league, all the other teams could defeat each other and could lose to each other easily. So it was a very tough season, and I think, apart from Real Madrid, Baskonia, the other 3 playoff matchups are quite close.
Yeah, they're all coin flips. I mean, they go
Yeah.
either way. Every single one of them
Yeah.
is a coin flip besides Real Madrid, Baskonia.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. Look, my picks were obviously Madrid. I took Panathinaikos in 5 over Maccabi. I took Monaco in 5 over Fenerbahce, and then I'm taking Olympiacos in 4 here. But like I'm not confident in any winner besides Real Madrid.
Yeah. Me
They
too.
could all break either
Exactly.
way.
Exactly. Yeah. I agree 100%.
Yeah. All right, Seb. We're both leaning Olympiacos on 4, but as we said, it could easily break another way depending on what shots go in and what don't. Before we sign off, anything you want to promote? Thanks so much for coming on. It was great to have you on.
Thank you
We'll
so
have to
much for
bring you on
having me.
again.
Thank you so
So
much for having me. I mean, for anyone that wants to follow, I'm Seb from the Court on Twitter, and it's where all my content goes, and it's where all my opinions go for the people that never asked. And yeah, if anybody wants to follow Olympiacos, I'm there, spitting facts and opinions. Mostly opinions, though. Mostly opinions.
yeah, same here. Same here. A lot of opinions, a lot less facts. Seb, thanks so much. We'll have to do this again soon, maybe for the Final Four. Take care.
Fingers crossed. Fingers
That's
crossed
right.
for my beloved Olympiacos. Thank you very much for having me.
Of course. Thank you.